The CAGED system is a well-known method to help find chords around the fretboard. It is certainly very useful for beginners, but I find that the real full system is often useful also for intermediate players. I watched several videos and read many articles about it, and in most cases only the first part of the system is analyzed, while the second part is, in my opinion, much more important. In the first part of this video I will show how to use this system to get familiar with barre chords around the fretboard, while in the second part I will illustrate how the CAGED system can be used for intermediate players to quickly find different voicing for a specific chord. These are the 7 notes used in Western music. With some of them, we can build major chord based on the root, the major third and the fifth, in an open position on the fretboard. In most cases, all the 6 strings will be either the root, or the fifth, or the third of the chord. The only exception being the D shape, where the low E string is the second and is not used. Let's start with the first one, A. This is an A major chord. From the low E string we have the fifth, the root, fifth, root, third and fifth. So we will consider the root on the A string, and we generally don't play the low E, so we can disregard it for our purposes. We can slide any major open chord up the fretboard to get other chord in a progression. If we slide it by 1 fret, we get the chord with the root on the next semitone, which in this case is B flat. But sliding just the fretted string is not enough, as the open chords will be still in the original position. We need to move them too. Therefore, we have to adjust the open chord by barring the first fret. We can then move the shape up the neck, obtaining different chords according to the root in the specific position. As an example, for this tutorial we can call this chord a C major in A shape. Then we have D flat, D, E flat, E, and so on. You are certainly familiar with the shape, as it is widely used even as a full chord in all music genres. The next note is B, but we cannot form a major triad chord using open strings. The simplest shape used in most cases for a B major is an A-shaped chord at the 2nd fret. So we can disregard it. Then we have the C chord with a root on the A string. Starting from the low E string, we have third, root, third, fifth, root, and again third. We generally don't play the low E. There are already enough thirds. This shape is played very often as a 7th chord in this very easy to finger position that can be moved in the fretboard, playing only the 4 inside strings. But for this tutorial, let's stick mainly to simple major chords. The shape is a bit awkward to finger if we want to use all the upper 5 strings, but we don't need to. It can also be played normally in the inner 4 strings, or just the top 4 strings. Then we have the D shape, which is the only one with the root on the D string. Therefore, we generally play only the top 4 strings, root, fifth, root and third. It is extremely easy to finger, and very often it is played in just the top 3 notes. The E shape is probably the most recognizable one, with root, fifth, root, third, fifth, root. It is very frequently used in all styles. The low part of it is used a lot in hard rock for power chords. The root is obviously in the low E string. We can cross out F, as there is no open shape that fits our requirements. The simplest chord we generally identify F with is the E shape moved 1 semitone up. Finally, we have the G shape, root, third, fifth, root, third, root, with the main root on the low E string. It is an extremely difficult shape to finger when you take it up the neck, So we generally play it only in fragments. As an example, we have a famous Jimi Hendrix move, playing only the 4 inner strings and going from the A shape to the G one. We basically have the 3 note of the classic A shape and move the bass note on the A string from the root to the 3rd. It is also played in the top 4 or top 3 strings, in this shape, often with a move to the 7th. So, this is the first part of the CAGED system, which basically explains how 5 shapes corresponding to 5 of the 7 notes can be brought all over the fretboard to form other chords corresponding to the position of the root. Note that at the 12th fret everything starts again, and the chords are the same as with open chords. So, here we go back again to the original chords for each shape. A C shape is a C chord, an A shape is an A chord, and so on. But why is it called CAGED then? We should be calling it ACDAG, ACDG. Here we enter the most powerful part of the system, and the part that can also be useful to intermediate players. We call the system CAGED because the 5 shapes follow each other on the fretboard in a specific order: C, A, G, E, D. Let's start with the C shape and let's see how we can form other C chords moving up the neck. If we go to the farthest note of the chord on the fretboard and want to play a C chord, we find it by using the A shape. This is in fact a C chord using the A shape, and it starts exactly in the position where the previous C chord ended. Let's now move to the farthest point in the A-shaped C chord and try to find the next C chord. If we form a G-shaped one, the root is now a C, and it is indeed a C chord. Interesting, the first 3 shapes are C, A and G. They sound familiar, maybe the next shape will be E? And if we move to the end of the chord to form an E shape, it is indeed another C chord. Okay, wait a moment. We had a C shape, then an A, then a G, then an E. Surely the next one is going to be D. Yes, if we go to the farthest note of the shape and form a D shape, it is indeed, again, another C chord. Oh, I see now why it's called CAGED. We can form the same chord moving up the fretboard by using the shapes exactly in that order: C, A, G, E, D. As we saw above, each following shape starts from the farthest note of the previous shape. But there is an exception to the rule. Now let's try to do the same with an E chord. The first one is obviously the E shape. To form the next E chord, we use the D shape. After the D-shaped E chord, we have the exception to our rule, which is important to memorize. In the next E chord, the C-shaped one doesn't start from the last fret of the D shape, but from the one before, the fret where we have 2 fingers on string G and the I-E. So we can rewrite our rules as follows. The same major chord can be played on the different shapes in the CAGED order, starting from the last note fretted of the previous shape, except for the C shape, which will start on the second last fret of the D shape. Immediately after the C-shaped E chord, we have the A-shaped one, and finally a G-shaped one. All of them are big major chords. A couple of examples. Let's say we are playing a C chord with a root at the 8th fret of the low E string, and need to find alternate voicing in the same region of the fretboard. Probably we are not playing a simple C major chord, maybe a dominant or a major 7 or 6th or half diminished. It doesn't really matter. We need to form some C chord somewhere close by in the fretboard. The C chord with a root on the 8th fret on the low E is an E-shaped chord, so we know that right after we have a D-shaped one, and can immediately form the one we need: dominant, major 7, 6th, minor, minor 7th, half diminished. We also know that the C chord before the E-shaped one is the G-shaped one. Therefore, we can move down the fretboard and find our voicing here, maybe in the low string, or else more often in the upper portion. Major, major 7th, dominant, 6th, minor 7, half diminished, and so on. Another example, let's say that we want to vamp on an E chord using triad, maybe in blues, pop or reggae. So we want to quickly memorize all the possible E triads on the top 3 strings. The first E chord we encounter on the fretboard is a E-shaped one. So we can play the top 3 notes for an E triad with 3rd, 5th and root. Note that in the case of an E chord, when playing triads on the top strings, we can also add the open D string, if we intend to play an E7, as D is the 7th of E. Moving up the fretboard, the next E chord we find is the D-shaped one. After the D-shaped E chord we have the C-shaped one, but remember that it doesn't start at the last fret of the previous shape, but in the one before. Right after we have the A-shaped one, and finally a G-shaped. Now let's say that we want to find the higher register chord for A7. We start from the A-shaped one, then we have the G-shaped one, this is the major triad and this is the 7th. We followed with the E-shaped, the D-shaped, and finally the C. As you can see, very easy. And I also hope very useful. I will very soon publish a video on how to find and identify chord all over the fretboard. I will post a link here as soon as I publish it. If you enjoyed this one, hit the like button and subscribe to Guitar Avenues. Bye for now.